Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Johnny Law and Daniel Quinn. On today's episode, we have a part 2. So if this is your first time listening to this particular podcast, definitely go back at least one episode and give that a listen. Otherwise, it's going to be a little confusing. So last we left off, we had a prompt that included all sorts of, oh boy, we had necromancy, we had mensis blood, we had ocean people, among so many amazing other things. Again, really go listen to that. And remember, if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. Now, last we left off, we also had a twist, which was everyone are clones. So, John, how did you reconcile with this twist? What do we got for the Clone War saga? What do you got for us?
So I was going to go one direction at first, and I was going to kind of lean into the whole misogynistic patriarchy bullshit and say that the reason why the women were gone, part of the reason why, I can't remember if we actually resolved that or not, but was that the men started cloning women, kind of like to have like the perfect mates, and they became infertile. But then I realized that's getting like really sci-fi, and this is supposed to be Bronze Age, so I decided to take it back a couple of steps and instead kind of take some a cue off the vinicultural world, and that cloning is much in the same way that you clone grapes in winemaking or wine growing, I guess. And that people started because they can't have, their progenies aren't actually directly from them, like they're like inseminating these animals or whatever magically. That they would start to move to try to graft parts of their brain onto other living beings. So basically, like to create like a clone of themselves on this new form.
I'm good in that. Yeah, I am in total agreement with Daniel here. Can you explain that just a little bit? Like, what does the procedure look like exactly?
So in the wine world, what it means is that you're actually taking parts of, in a lot of the cases when you clone grapes, is that you're actually taking parts of a vine and you're grafting it onto the rootstock of another vine that's been there for, centuries or whatever, or at least decades. And it's a way to kind of make it starts to take the properties of that, and also takes the properties of the new environment, and it kind of reshapes it and makes it a clone. So it's not a direct copy, but it's a variation on what was originally there. In this case, I would think it would be someone that knew that they were at the end of their life, would basically like buy another person or buy someone else's kid that they couldn't, afford anymore, and have a surgery or magical necromancy style surgery to graft parts of their brain onto this new form to kind of keep themselves intact in a new body.
Interesting. I mean, that also seems to match up pretty well with the reincarnation is a massive problem in this world tenet that we had. So I think that we're like, first of all, that's fucking gross and horrifying.
Thank
But
you.
also, but yeah, I can definitely see some kind of like weird alchemical, like it's part alchemy, part ritual, I would imagine. And so
A touch of
culturally,
necromancy.
yeah, right. So like like culturally, what is the purpose? How do people see this exactly?
I would think it would be one of those things that's kind of frowned upon by the general populace, but it is done by the mega rich. So,
So who cares about the populace, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
What are
exactly.
you going to do about it? I also think you might kind of end up with a man with two brains kind of situation where there will be residual left of the original owner. So, like, does their thought process get interrupted by that?
That's really fascinating. Daniel, I can't wait to see how you managed to work through this particular twist. How did you reconcile with the twist this time?
I just had a couple questions about this horrifying brain splicing. So are they doing this to themselves or to children or who's
So
the
both,
subject? Okay.
yes. No. So it'd be in my mind, it's that it starts off with a rich person
Uh-huh.
who then procures this new child or younger body.
Oh, and they put themselves into it?
Yeah, and then they have
Mhm.
someone else do the procedure,
Mhm.
like one of the necromancers that are qualified to do this,
Mhm.
certified, and they would then they're basically like on their deathbed they would have like their brain sawed into pieces and then have parts grafted back onto this new brain.
I see. So the impetus for doing this would be that perhaps they are, since they have trouble breeding because they have to do this
Yeah,
through other animals. Then in the absence of being able to do that, they hire the necromancers to literally put themselves in another body.
yeah. So it's kind of like it's kind of
Or
skipping a step on reincarnation.
gross.
Um, I would then even go in the for like I don't know if we're not doing factions yet, but I was thinking that maybe some people started doing another variant of this where they're trying to take parts of their like of tissue that could be slightly regenerative and putting it into other people to like kind of like broaden their influence on the world. But I don't really think that went out yet. I was gonna wait to hear what you guys had to say first.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yes.
I my thoughts about the cloning were far more metaphorical, and I don't think they're in contradiction to anything. Only in the sense that since we know that the people that are being grown or gestated in these other animals contest with the spirits of the past. In the sense that they're trying to not be reincarnations. My thought was that these spirits represent kind of a single generation of people that keep coming back. And so, in that sense, they're clones, the ones that always latch on to new life. Um, and so, it's neat to see both a metaphorical version of this and then also a very physical one.
Yes. And I think they would be at odds with each other too,
Mhm.
as far as like that's like what happens on the other side before you come back. Like there must be something that's not great, or like magic's stemming from you. So does that hurt or something? Like does that draw from your life force, or why would someone want to skip that step?
Mhm. And we know that the part of the reason why this reincarnation stuff is happening is because of that flood of
Souls, yeah.
yeah, that happened. So then it seems like they're different purposes. Like on the one hand, when you're splicing yourself onto someone living, you're trying to extend your life, whereas these spirits that come back are trying to take a new life to latch onto it and overtake it.
Daniel, why do I feel like if given the chance, there's a percentage that you would take that deal? You're like, hey, put me in a new child body with my same old brain. I feel like there's a non-0% chance that you'd be like, yeah, I could do that.
The child would have to be consenting, of course, which I don't think would be the case.
I think definitionally, I don't think that's possible.
Right.
But
So I do regard myself as someone who is lawful good. So I don't think I would do it. But if there were
Mhm.
no problems with it, then perhaps.
Okay, what if like the child is in a vegetative state, cannot come back, but you can put your brain in that child, and then you can like function like
Uh,
relatively fine,
I don't think they could consent then.
right? But they're otherwise vegetative, like no chance of recovery whatsoever.
I probably would say no, only because the situation's too dicey. Like it can't, they
Mm.
can't recover, and we're not really sure if they're dead or not. Medically.
Gotcha.
I
Sorry
think it
for
would make more
the
sense to grow a body and then take it. Then there's no
ah,
qualms.
gotcha. Okay,
Or
yeah.
convert yourself digitally. That's just a lot easier.
Well, but then there's no morality like nonsense
Yeah,
at play there. Like
exactly.
that's why I wanted to like push your limits and see,
Yes.
where body harvesting really comes into play for you. That I
Yeah.
was just curious about that. Okay, tangent aside, I do love the two kind of different like sides that we're seeing here, both the very literal and the metaphorical. I was similarly tempted to go metaphorical, but I was just thinking of our matriarch, from the sea, like the grand unified idea of Mother Ocean, And that's how I decided to try and reconcile this twist personally, where the mother, like the mother from the boat people, right? She's able to currently have children, hence why she's swollen with belly and everything like that. However, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like a complete break. And I thought about this and I'm like, oh, what if all the women she gives birth to are literal clones of herself, but like they're effectively null people, like they don't really have their own personality, they cannot function, but they act as like spare bodies for the mother if her spirit were to ever die. It's like they literally just like transfer over to one of these living but not quite alive women bodies.
Oh. So she's using all of her offspring as extra vessels.
Yes, but I think that it's not intentional. I think that she genuinely wants to have children and she genuinely wants to have like women propagate once more. I
Mhm.
just think that there's something else that's currently restricting that from happening and having like women actually propagate again, like kind of like what we talked about last episode.
Huh. Are they consenting to this?
I mean, again, I don't think that they're technically people until like her spirit inhabits them. So I would say no.
Are they like robots?
I think that they're like, honestly, I see them as like she has a retinue of women, right? And they're all
Yeah.
identical to her. And in my brain, they're like all veiled and they're all like like remarkably cared for,
Okay.
like so they have like retinues of servants who walk with them and make sure that they're okay, but like they're otherwise like not really humans, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're soulless, basically. They're
Yes, kind of, yeah. They're
golems of some sort.
yeah, kind of. I would probably say more like homunculi more than
Hmm.
anything else, but
I just
like
think homunculi make me think of ugly things though, whenever I hear that word. So
oh, okay.
thralls.
Well, see, you're not an anime person, obviously, because
Uh,
Full Metal Alchemist, the homunculi are just hot anime people. So
I am absolutely
yeah,
not an anime person.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's fine. You're amongst good company then, because Daniel,
Yeah.
we know how Daniel feels about anime. But anyway, okay. So that's kind of I wanted to bring a little bit to, and I'm glad that we got like 3 different angles on like the whole clones thing, because like man, that is, I don't know. I feel like with a prompt like that, like everyone's clones, I feel like that normally would seem very restrictive, but I love seeing our creative muscles being flexed right here. You know what I mean? So
And not sci-fi
um,
either.
yeah, didn't go sci-fi with it. I'm actually quite happy about that too, because I like the kind of like sword and sorcery vibe that we got from
Mhm.
last episode. I'm glad that that's still intact. Uh, and speaking of, John, you had mentioned previously that you were hinting at a faction that you were kind of working towards that. What do you got for us, John? What are you thinking?
Oh, I don't want to go first.
All right, fine, Daniel. Daniel, John has bullied you into going first with your faction. So what's your faction, Daniel?
Hold on, let me find my notes about these kidnappers.
Oh God. Okay. We've got kidnappers. Excellent.
Speaking of consent,
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
yes. So I was thinking we have like this powerful invading female character. So this is a cult of seers of some sort who kidnap children, especially the ones that are being gestated, so they can cultivate their past lives and build a war council of previous rulers, so they can defeat the invasion.
I love that, Daniel. I really love that. Because it's like we need the greatest heroes of ages past. And it's like, all right, well, this one's still an infant, but like that's basically Hercules right there. So like let's see what we got.
Yep.
But like also like cultivating them for their spirit and who they might be, and also knowing who like which soul is in which body is also kind of nefarious. I feel like there's some nefarious shit going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're probably not good guys.
It doesn't. As soon as you said kidnappers, any sense of like, oh, the kidnappers are the good guy, like that went out the window, Daniel. You know what I
You
mean?
know, sometimes you have good kidnappers like the Jedi, and then sometimes you have bad kidnappers. You know,
Like the Jedi.
uh, at least that's
All
what
right.
the acolyte would have you believe. That horrific show.
I'm so glad that I just stopped caring about Star
Yep,
Wars.
I'm
Like
with you.
Yeah.
I think it was literally The Force Awakened where I watched it. I'm like, that was pretty good. I don't have to watch another Star Wars movie ever again. And then I was vindicated so hard that I was like, okay. And then I watched The Mandalorian. Mandalorian's great, but
You should see
Was.
Andor though.
Yeah,
And
Andor's the best.
oh,
the
I
best
did. I
one.
did start Andor on your recommendation. I think I only got like 4 episodes in. It is very good though. It
Oh,
is
did you get past the speech with the old dude?
That's towards the end.
No, the in the very beginning, he gives like a speech to the main character to get him on board, like in the 3rd episode, I think.
Are we talking? Okay, are we talking about the guy who's played by a Skarsgård? And it's
Yes.
like that guy is very clearly the best character in the show.
Yes, that
Okay, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember his speech. It
Oh,
has
okay.
been a while though.
The very
but-
beginning, like I think it's maybe 3rd or 4th. Maybe it's beyond that because he when they're being attacked in some warehouse or something, so they have to like recover something, and then he gives a speech, and I'm just like, yes, I'm in.
Well, I don't remember it, so maybe it was like an episode or 2 before I stopped or something like that. But yeah. Okay. So Daniel, we've got kidnappers as your faction. I definitely see like some kind of evil cabal happening there. Totally love it. Love where it plays here. And yeah, like I would imagine that, finding the correct soul in the correct body. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. So John, we're back to you. What is your faction? You got to go second this time.
Okay, fine. I'm done making it up. No. I was kind of pivoting around a couple of things. I think I want to go in a completely different direction though than I was initially going to go, and go with it is actually a slowly forming coalition. Coalition? Why couldn't I speak right now? Slowly forming coalition of sentient animals that are tired of being used as baby vessels. And so somehow in the process of fine tuning the impregnation of these animals, something slipped up and somehow a soul got into the animal and took over its body instead of the womb inside it. And so the baby was like born stillborn or whatever, but the animal was like, oh fuck. And they realized how fucked up this whole situation is. And so as more of this slip ups kind of happen, there you have this like you ever see that South Park episode with the little forest creatures?
Yeah, of course. The Christmas Critter Pals.
The
Yeah.
Christmas critter. Yeah. So it's basically like that is starting, where there's just these like slowly this group of magical sentient or overly sentient self-aware, let's put it that way, forest creatures are slowly building up their forces to kind of change the world.
Are we talking like as cartoonishly evil as the Christmas Critters as well, or
No, I think they're actually the good guys, and
okay?
how this all like how they don't do kidnapping. They do ask for consent.
Immediately, slightly more moral than Daniel's faction. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah. But they're definitely it's a slow growth thing. Like maybe it's been happening for a while now, and maybe because of the perversion of the whole system, maybe they actually do have longer lives than the animal should. Like they don't age the same, or maybe they don't age at all. I don't know. I don't know about the magic of the necromancy and maybe they remain pregnant. So they
Ugh.
continue, they actually do, they don't, there's no stillborn. They just don't ever have the baby. It stops growing.
Gross.
And so that's why
gross about the
they,
setting.
they maintain. I mean, you're the one start off with impregnating animals and no women.
I was going to say, Daniel, this is a direct line to your fault. So yeah,
Don't you put this evil on me, Ricky Bobby?
I did this. I regret everything.
But yeah, no, I like that they're actually maintaining the fetus within them although they're halting its development process, and therefore they are still able to wield the magic.
I'm picturing in Fullmetal Alchemist. Remember the horrible chimera thing?
Oh, I sure do.
Oh
I sure do,
God,
Daniel.
they all look like that.
Can you keep anime references limited to Akira and Vampire Hunter D? Because that's like all I know.
Ooh, I mean, the only ones I know actually, Fullmetal Alchemist is only one of the few good ones, so I feel like you would probably like that one too.
No, I've heard good things about it. I just don't care.
But I'm with
Yeah.
you. Like, I really hate all of them, so I only have like 4.
I was gonna say, Daniel, you've brought up like multiple anime before, which I find like
4 or
uncajoled.
5.
Yeah, no, I know, but still, okay, that number just went up, which means it went up exponentially here.
I'm just
saying.
covering my bases, you know.
Yeah.
All your bases belong to
I
us.
CYA myself.
I feel like you guys would like Satoshi Kon's work, but we don't got time for that shit. We're talking about fetuses right now. So yeah, I do appreciate this idea that like there is some level of sentience within these animals that's like awakened. And I feel like if this goes unchecked, these animals, we're gonna have like a full-on Zootopia world. And like that we're just creating the prequel to Zootopia. I'm realizing it right now. Like that's what's going to happen if we continue on.
Except
Yeah, even more grotesque. Honestly, the Zootopia is kind of grotesque on its own. But
I mean,
anyway.
while DQ's Tooken War Council is fighting the Sea Hag, that's when the animals strike and take over. The third faction coming in there.
I don't know. I feel like there's like you've created a self PETA in some way where they're like looking for their own animal liberation in some way. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, like the life of an animal, at least this kind of animal, like the birthing animal, is horrific in so many ways. So like I think that any human would look at that and be like, yeah, we should kill that with fire and stop this whole process forever, you know? Just let our genetic sludge melt into the primordial sea and hope that we can come back. But we cannot continue to propagate like this.
I would think at this time, though, that these said animals have they're laying low, like they have escaped the birthing colonies and back to nature, but they're slowly building up this coalition of like-minded, literally like-minded. Like so, they're not. I don't think they're exposed yet.
There's like communes of them. And it's like you follow this one where it's like I don't know, it's like a cow person, right? And they run away from the gestation pits, and then you see like torches in the forest, and they're like, oh, they've been caught, and actually it's just like a goat man with some people. It's like, oh, cool, come this way, and we've got your safety and your safe haven. You know,
I just picture them all like in a council, like around in a circle, and they're like, this justice must be fought. We must rise again. And people walk by, and it's like, keep walking. Like, where was I?
I was thinking like full cowls and hoods and stuff like that. But yeah,
they throw those in the bushes real quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you got?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, John. My faction is, well, let's see. How can I put this? So I was thinking about the idea of like, actually, we've got a lot of similarities here, John, except actually we've all just got secret societies. I just realized this, right? So you've got Secret Animal Society Liberation Front. Daniel's got Secret Kidnappers, which I
just hate children. Anyway. That's why.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. And then for me, I have the Order of the Red Kana, which is a society of men who have had their souls partially, or at least, partially taken over by ancestors who are women. So very much embodying a male body, but have a woman soul, right? Not to go like indigenous people's dual soul type situation on it, but like that's some inspiration there. But that's kind of what I've got, where it's like, hey, we're actually women and we need to stay low in this particular society that really doesn't value women, that's deeply, like misogynistic in some ways. And it's basically yeah, again, we've got a lot of weird overlap here. But the red kana, by the way, is it's, if you know the painter Georgia O'Keeffe, the red kana are her very famous like flower paintings and stuff like that, which despite her protestations very much emulate like vulva and like female genitalia and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I've got. I didn't really, honestly, I thought that like having a secret society would be enough to be like, ooh, that's interesting and different. But apparently not in today's episode. But that's
line,
what
pal.
I've got going.
What's
that?
It's a get in line, pal.
Yeah, I know, right? Shit, I should have gone first. I should have.
I gave you every opportunity. I gave you.
You're right. I did this to myself. You're right.
I like the idea of secret ladies. They could be like the rebel faction almost. And what's really interesting is if this were like a film or something, you would have no women cast, right? But the dudes have to, the actors have to embody these women. And I imagine I could see flashback scenes where you have the female actresses playing themselves that the male actors actually are, that are embodying at the moment. But it's like you have a situation where the actor really needs to emulate the female actress so that when you're listening to him speak as her, it's convincing that it's her, which it would be neat. It would be a neat thing to see, like if it were a film.
So I completely agree with you. I think that'd be a really interesting kind of like, especially if you like matched those scenes back to back or like side to side or something like that. That would be really interesting. Alternatively, we could just do what Suspiria did and just have Tilda Swinton play both roles.
Yeah,
totally be fine.
That would be great.
Otherwise, this just completely fails the Bechdel test. Going right
that was our goal, is to make a setting where it's not possible to apply the test at all.
Okay, I think that was your goal, but yeah, sure.
Like, how misogynistic can we make it?
Oh, honestly, this isn't even. Well, we don't want to have that competition, Daniel. We really don't. That's not something I'm interested in taking part in. But
is it anti-feminist, or is it the greatest feminist piece ever written?
Ooh, especially, yeah. That's actually a very good point, Daniel.
To all our female listeners, let me explain to you why this is the greatest feminist piece ever written.
Exactly.
Actually, this is a great feminist work. Here's why.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You females.
Yeah. Oh God.
If you're listening, Star Wars, you can make a show about this.
Somewhere just in the distance, I hear Courtney throwing up.
I know. Oh man. And she's not even editing this episode, so it's gonna come out of nowhere for her. Oh, it's gonna be so good. Oh God. Anyway, okay. I have a request, gentlemen. So, like I said, I thought that having the secret society aspect would be unique enough. I feel like now my faction just kind of like is a melange in a sea. So how would you recommend that I make them a little bit spicier, a little bit more interesting? Or do you think that we need that? Do you think that they're kind of interesting enough on their own? Like, what are y'all thinking?
Not good.
I was just think maybe it's maybe it's less of a society, but it's just like an occurrence that happens and is kept hidden. Almost like being like in the closet in the 1950s.
Oh,
and maybe that's our protagonist is actually one of these such people. And
that's my thought too.
It's part of like, meanwhile you have this like other, the background, that's the threat of war or invasion or whatever, but then there's this like they're coming to grips. There's a coming of age.
I mean, if you think about it too, like thematically, you have one faction is the woman who's returning, who's an actual woman, and she's a war terror, right? And then we've got the cabal of dudes who are trying to create a war council, right? And so that's male versus female. But then in the middle, you have the literal mixture of the two. Yeah. And so that has to be your protagonist because they're the ones that can negotiate the two halves.
And I think I the more that I think about this, I think what you said about being out and like not being a secret society, I think that's actually perhaps more interesting, that there are just like a proportion of society that is like, no, they're women, right? Like they have women's souls and they're out and they're just like living that way. And that's like a completely normalized part of life within this culture. I think I'm pivoting. I'm going to say that that's my canon now, where it's like they're not a secret society. It's like, no, they're just part of the, like the Order of the Red Khana. They're just women in men's bodies, and they're out and about it. I think that's way more interesting, considering what we've got going on here.
I mean, I'm more interested in the conflict. So it's like maybe that could be the goal, but I mean, I think it's, as a story, it'd be more interesting if these are maybe not the first, but they're the first to organize and make themselves a norm, because that conflict would be interesting to interact with. Like if you're playing these protagonists and you're trying to establish that.
What if one person came out as such and then they're like, it was like, no, I'm Serpico or whatever. What's that? No, it's not Serpico. What's the one?
Spartacus. Yeah.
Spartacus. Yeah. One of those S-lettered movies.
But
where it's like more people were like, oh no, I identify as this way too. I thought I was alone, and like then it became that
right. Because then you start
open, but it's fresh.
Look, I'm all for like a social justice movement in a Bronze or in a Dark Ages type story. So I'm cool with that. All right, I'm happy with that. I like the idea that maybe the Order of the Red Khana was how it started, like underground enclaves and stuff like that, and now it's like an out and out social movement that's happening. And there's still very much conflict. They're still fighting for liberation, very much like like what you would expect. Except now it's like out and about, and now it's also like you kind of hinted at previously, they are perhaps a mediator between this new, like the Ocean Mother and the Council of, kidnappers, PDF file kidnappers, that kind of thing.
I mean, I can imagine them being hunted too. Like both sides want to kill them.
100%, right? Like talk about like not fitting in this particular setting at all, right? Like, 100%.
Do the animals accept them? That's the question.
No, because they're humans. So, get out of here, you dirty humies.
I could see them being allied with the animals because, as provided that they don't engage in the impregnation of these creatures, because they're also they have a duality to them that the animals are that's forced upon the animals.
Okay, I can see that, like not feeling like they belong in the right body, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, if they're looking for allies in the world, then they're going to have to. The animals may be the only ones that I can think of.
Plus, the animals can like shoot lasers out of their eyes and shit.
Yes, cool. And they can bite people.
And other magic.
We've got
Misty Step.
They can Misty Step.
Everyone can Misty Step.
Good.
They have breath weapons, possibly.
I mean, well, if we're going by Chimera, then they definitely have breath weapons, right?
Yeah, multiple heads.
Especially the ones with...
Sorry.
But
no, it's kind of like in Futurama where they have the mutant people underground.
And those are our animals. Got it. Okay.
Sometimes.
Sometimes animal parts.
Yeah, they've got animal parts for sure. I mean, and they are animals. They're underworld people. Come on.
I mean, in the same way that humans are animals, yes, Daniel, I would agree with you.
Subhuman. That's what I was looking for. They're subhuman.
Jesus Christ.
We just like to call them savages.
Yeah, that's it. They're savages.
Well, no, that's got a more imperialist, like colonialist bent to it. I feel like subhuman, that's a little bit different, That I feel is where you get like eugenics into it. So that I feel like that's perhaps a little bit more modern.
That's got some Nazi leanings.
Yeah. Anyway, also, where do you think the Nazis learned it from, John? They learned it from the United States. Anyway. Okay, we're moving on from the Nazi talk, for the love of God. So what's our main storyline quest? What have we got here? What are we thinking?
I mean, it's got to involve these reincarnated women.
Is it simple as that, where it's just like the council comes to them, it's like, hey, if you negotiate peace or if you figure out what's going on, then we'll accept you socially? Is that, it's like one of those things where it's like the government says, hey, if you just be one of the good ones, we'll allow you to exist?
I mean, I'm picturing I'm imagining this is a small group of people something more intense. There's a small group of people who are trying to organize, right? And you've got two factions that want to exterminate them. So I could see like this being a kind of very high stakes rebel movement that's trying to gain allies and make alliances as this war is consuming the world, and they may be the only ones who can like maybe there's some other subplot that they're trying to achieve that can create peace. I don't see diplomacy working too well, or if they try to do diplomacy between the two factions, they have to be careful because the two factions are not interested in giving them any sort of liberation. They're interested in using them.
Okay. I'm now picturing this as a kind of a Suicide Squad situation.
Yeah.
It's like this like group of people, they're living their lives like safely, kindly, like in a loving thing. And then all of a sudden the government comes in, like burns down their homes, enslaves them and says, listen, you are going to negotiate peace. And as a result, we will allow you to live. And that's kind of like, it's like the literal definition of like gunboat diplomacy, where it's like, if you don't do this, we will murder you. And like, it kind of like plays into this kind of gendered idea of like diplomacy. It's like, get the women to do it, right? Like that kind of thing, or like this incredibly aggressive, like fascistic sense of like, we're going to murder you if you don't do this. So go do diplomacy stuff for us. I don't know. There's just something to that I'm like, that's kind of cool, like, because what you do, right? Like the stakes are you live with, and you like relate to this small community, and then you see it destroyed, and then you see it threatened, right? Like, I think that there's something to that we can play off of.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think what are they bringing to the table that would put him in that position, though? Like, what besides a different perspective, so to speak, but like why would that be negotiating for the sea lady?
Well, maybe actually this would tie into Daniel's faction quite well. So it's like like you can take Daniel's element of like seeing where the reincarnated souls go, and then basically forcing them like, hey, we're not going to wait around for you to reincarnate. Go do this thing. There's a potential for us to manipulate you now. And here are the stakes, and here's what we have for you as a result. That kind of thing.
Where are these people coming from? Are they like, for example, is one of them are these kidnappees of this cult?
Oh, maybe one is an escapee of the cult, of the kind of kidnappers or something like that.
Because I could see them having leverage if they were kidnapped and raised by this cult.
No, that's what I mean. Like they grew up like, hey, you're going to be this new soul, but maybe it's a matter of like, rather than like complete subsumption of the new soul, it's like a new person emerged, and this is the first time in the history of the kidnappers program that happened. And like somehow like one of the cultists is like, hey, we're going to actually extract you. I feel like I've grown this attachment to you. And maybe that's where this new commune started, is in this kind of like escape from your faction originally, Daniel.
And so then maybe they were collecting others then who have this situation.
Yeah, and they have like whatever technology or whatever like alchemy that they have that allows them to see or track reincarnations. Maybe that's what's allowed them to kind of gather such a large community to begin with.
And then it would make sense that they're being hunted because this particular person was supposed to be in this council to deal with the threat, and so they're trying to get them back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's becoming very Sense8 like all of a sudden. I don't know if you
I've got to see that at some point. I haven't seen that yet.
It's got some great moments, and it's got some very Wachowski sibling moments.
I've heard that it's very much a strong 7 out of 10.
Okay, it starts off really strong. There's some really cool characters, but then it starts becoming a circle jerk.
Isn't that literal?
Points.
Isn't that literal? Doesn't
Yeah.
that literally happen? There's like
Yep.
a mind
One of the
orgy.
actors from the first season dropped out of the second season because he was not comfortable with the direction.
Wow.
They wanted him to
With
act.
the mind orgy. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's
okay.
actual physical orgies, but too.
Oh, okay. See,
Yeah.
this is
Of
why
the
I didn't
mind.
watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think that beyond like looking for the person who's supposed to be on this war council, I think it also helps that maybe they stole a piece of the tech or alchemy or like something like that.
Mm.
The knowledge of, you know, like finding these souls. And it's like, we've got to get that back too, you know, like that kind of thing.
We took the solarirometer.
Okay, now I'm just imagining like it's an electrician who just like looks at the soul like rolling like numbers and it's like, you got an Abe Lincoln there. That's coming. You got Lincoln coming up soon.
Oh,
Like that kind of thing.
don't blink or you miss the Genghis Khan.
Oh, well, there's a bunch of those, you know, but Abe Lincoln you only get every once in a while.
What I do like about this that there aren't really good guys except for maybe this group who are, you know, whether or not they're good or bad, they're really just looking for their own freedom, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think liberation and freedom is very much like a theme that we've found in this particular setting. Speaking of, we've got to incorporate your animal liberation front somewhere, John.
I was going to say
right
there, I think they also just want a sense of freedom and, you know, be able to thrive as a new species of sorts. So I think they would align with that with our protagonists.
Oh, okay. So at some point, the protagonist group befriends or otherwise like accepts this animal commune into their group as well,
or vice versa. I would say like that as they're running, as they're like chased into the woods, they like, you know, a pack of wolves, you know, besets them, and it turns out they're not actually full wolves; they're these magical.
Oh
furries.
yeah, that'd be neat. These furries, we created furries, John.
Yay!
Oh my God, John did accidentally create furries. Oh no!
Great, awesome.
Get the fan art going.
They're all
John. What would your persona be?
Oh my God!
Yeah, what animal?
Fucking live in reality. That's what
I feel like John's persona would be a bird of some kind. I feel like a stork, maybe.
I would have seen more of a dog-like animal, or like a wolfish animal.
I wouldn't want to do that to dogs. Can you pick dragons? Is that
dragons are not? Well, I guess so.
I mean,
well, no, those are
because furries are real.
Is it those therians or something? I forget what they call it.
No, those are scalies. Those are scalies, not furries. And I asked you what your persona was, John, not your scale persona. Okay, so
persona.
It would be a dinosaur, feathered.
Feather, how dare you?
Ooh, yeah,
Low blow.
Okay, all right. Now that we know that.
Things. You know, making up words.
Excuse me. Your persona or scale sona is a serious matter. Okay, John. I'm just saying.
Oh, I just was. Okay. I got that.
Okay. So we've got.
So I would think that they stumble upon and learn about this, and they realize that they like, you know, because these things are magical, they can mind read and be like, oh, you're lost too. You're not in the right form. And I feel like that the climax would be them actually dicking over all the factions and starting their own, you know, overthrowing the reign of these patriarchal folks.
Can I suggest as well that like maybe the ending is not so much like the end of the patriarchy or what have you, but maybe it's a matter of like, hey, this land is basically lost. We're going to go back with the Sea Mother and live in that realm, whatever that realm might be, you know? So it's like, it's about rejection or like leaving the society that cannot accept you and like going to try and find acceptance elsewhere, you know, even though that is new and like a new horizon and a complete unknown. I feel like thematically that might work better for us here.
And they take all the brain necromancers with them.
Oh,
brain jobs for all.
Brain jobs.
I mean, what they're effectively doing is that they're taking magic with them as well. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Yeah,
I like that. Like leaving them to sink, basically. Like it's like just big fuck you.
Kinda. Yeah, it's like if you can't accept us, then we'll go make our own
Yeah.
society and fuck you guys, we're out. Like deuces up as they sail away.
I think it's also important to make the coalition come from each of the factions too. So we've got one from the one that's leading it, right, from the kidnapper group,
Mhm.
and then I could see one of your women clones being one that's picked up, and obviously one of your humans or your animal people, the furries. So together they end up making people who are looking for their own freedom, because the warrior goddess lady, she's not any good. She's not any better than them, because she has slave
Mhm.
clones too.
Yeah, I think that that's something that we can explore for sure. Like if we were to come back to this setting ever,
Mhm.
like what does the world on the other side of the ocean look like? That kind of thing.
Exactly. Like, and I can see if this group is traveling to build a coalition, plucking people from each of the factions would make sense.
Yes, exactly. All right. Yeah, no, I'm happy with this, how this all turned out. Dan, that's a really cool one. I really appreciate that. So
It's quite convoluted, but I like it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It is kind of convoluted, but I feel like if you were to write this out as a story, like you're getting emergent world building. I think it's not as convoluted as it sounds if we were to like tell it right and not as like a podcast that meanders quite a bit and talks about scale sonas. But like I feel like someone who is a really good writer could pull this off quite well,
Like
but-
what's his name? The one who does the things in his butt.
Chuck Tingle.
Yeah, like a Chuck Tingle could pull it off,
I don't disagree with that, Daniel. I really don't. But that's just because I believe in Chuck Tingle. I believe in the Tinglers. So
yeah. I wish someone would interview him or her.
They have. They okay. We'll talk about this off podcast. We gotta close it out.
Like I want to see what he looks like.
Oh, I'll talk about that off podcast with you. Yeah. Okay. For now, we got to close it out. So, oh boy, that's going to do it for this particular prompt. And a big thank you to our patron Ewan for this prompt. Remember that if you want us to build your world, like we did for Ewan here, you could always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we could be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on YouTube and Twitter. On Twitter, it's @Let'sWorldBuild. If you want to follow us on Discord and chat with us more directly, you can go ahead and do that with a link for that in the description. Or if you're feeling particularly generous or just want access to sweet, sweet patron-only goodies, you can give us money over on Patreon. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together. Until next week.